Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be tackling India's 5-year plans.
Oh, these are fascinating.
You bet they are. You've sent over a really interesting collection of excerpts from official documents, laying out the history, the goals of these ambitious economic programs.
Ambitious is right.
So get ready, because we're going to trace how these plans shaped modern India. We're talking everything from tackling poverty and boosting agriculture to navigating global economic storms and political shifts.
It's a wild ride.
It is a wild ride.
Yeah.
And remember, we're tailoring this deep dive for you.
That's right.
We're extracting the most important nuggets to give you a clear understanding.
Without getting bogged down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing that really struck me is that the concept of planned economic development wasn't something India just, picked up after gaining independence.
Right.
There's a deeper history here.
Yeah, there's a much deeper history.
Even before 1947, we see early initiatives like the National Planning Committee in 1938 and the Bombay Plan in 1944. What was driving these early efforts, even before independence, was on the horizon.
Well, I think it speaks to this real yearning for self-determination.
Oh, interesting.
Even before independence, they had this vision for economic progress.
On their own terms.
On their own terms, exactly.
Yeah.
Planning was recognized as a way to really, shape their own destiny.
So the desire for planned development was there, but the 5-year plan format itself that was inspired by the Soviet Union under Stalin.
That's right.
And that model really had a significant impact on the global stage.
Huge impact. Yeah.
And India, under Nehru, adopted this model in 1951, which reflects the prevailing political and economic trends of the time.
It does.
So picture this 1951, a newly independent India, opting for a socialist-influenced model and launching its very first 5-year plan. Bold move. A bold move.
It was a bold move.
And it all started with agriculture.
Absolutely.
So the first plan from 1951 to 1956 kind of laid the groundwork.
It did.
The focus was on agriculture ensuring stable prices and establishing essential infrastructure like power grids and transportation networks.
Yeah, the foundations.
And it's remarkable how successful this plan was.
It exceeded its growth targets.
I was going to say, did it exceed its targets?
It did. And, good harvest definitely played a role.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember the historical context. India had just emerged from colonial rule.
Right.
They were facing challenges like food insecurity.
Makes sense.
So the first plan's success in achieving food self-sufficiency was a significant achievement.
It really set the stage for future development.
It did. It laid the foundation.
And then we have the second plan from 1956 to 1961. And this is where things get really intriguing because we see this shift towards rapid industrialization with the Mahalanobis model.
Yeah, the Mahalanobis model.
So tell me about that.
It was all about prioritizing heavy industries with a strong emphasis on government investment.
Okay.
Professor Mahalanobis believed that this would create this ripple effect, stimulating growth in other sectors. But it's important to note that, this approach also sparked debate.
So while aiming for rapid growth,
right,
there were also disagreements about the best path forward.
Exactly. Some argued that this focus on heavy industry might neglect other crucial areas like agriculture and consumer goods.
Yeah.
These debates highlight the complexities and trade-offs inherent in economic planning.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then came the third plan, running from 1961 to 66, with this ambitious goal of making India self-reliant and a self-generating economy.
Right.
But this plan faced some hurdles.
Yeah, it did.
Significant hurdles.
Some big ones.
External conflicts and internal challenges played a significant role here.
They did.
The 1962 war with China.
Right.
The 1965 war with Pakistan.
Yeah.
And a severe drought meant resources had to be diverted. And the third plan fell short of its targets, prompting a reevaluation of strategies.
It did.
So after the third plan's setbacks, we see this pause in plan holiday from 1966 to 1969. What was the focus during this period?
Well, the plan holiday marked a time for stabilization.
Okay.
3 annual plans were implemented,
Right.
focusing on tackling those food shortages.
Yeah.
So they introduced this new agricultural strategy with high-yielding seeds, expanded fertilizer use, and developed irrigation systems.
So it was about strengthening the agricultural base before pursuing those ambitious industrialization goals again.
Exactly, right back to basics.
Then in 1969, the fourth 5-year plan was launched.
Yes.
What was the overall sentiment at this point?
Well, the fourth plan aimed for growth with stability and progressive achievement of self-reliance. trying to strike that balance between ambitious growth and economic stability.
After a turbulent period.
Exactly, after a turbulent period, but once again, there were significant challenges.
Like the influx of Bangladeshi refugees following the 1971 war with Pakistan.
Yes, a huge strain on resources.
And rising prices, of course, adding to the complicatedness.
Through this effort, the fourth plan also fell short of its growth targets.
It seems like there was this recurring theme. Ambitious plans, pushing for rapid development, but then encountering obstacles.
Right.
Whether it's conflict, natural disasters, or economic instability.
It's a pattern we see.
It is a pattern.
Yeah.
Now, the fifth plan, from 1974 to 79, brought about a new slogan, Garibi Hatao, meaning removal of poverty.
Yes.
So poverty alleviation became a central theme.
Absolutely. The fifth plan aimed to achieve this through high growth, better income distribution, and increased domestic savings.
Okay.
But once again, a global oil price hike fueled an economic crisis, throwing a wrench into the plan's progress.
It seems like the need for planning was constantly bumping up against the realities of a globalized world.
Exactly. India's economic journey has been deeply intertwined with global events.
Absolutely. And this was further highlighted with the short-lived rolling plan under the Janata Party government in 1978-80.
Right.
So with each change in government, there was this urge to tweak the approach to planning.
Well, the Janata Party criticized the previous centralized model, arguing that it concentrated power and led to inequality.
Okay.
Their rolling plan, though, was cut short when they lost power in 1980.
And then the Congress Party returned to power and launched the sixth plan.
They did, and the sixth plan from 1980 to 85 took a more direct approach to poverty alleviation through targeted schemes aimed at creating jobs and transferring skills.
And this plan was more successful in reaching its objectives.
It was.
So we're starting to see some progress on the poverty front.
We are.
It seems like they're learning from past experiences and refining their approach to these plans.
Absolutely. That evolution is essential to understanding the five-year plans. They weren't static. They adapted and changed based on the challenges and realities of the time.
We've journeyed through 6 5-year plans so far.
We have.
Each reflecting the evolving needs and priorities of India.
Indeed.
What awaits us in the next chapter of this economic saga?
Well, get ready for a period of remarkable growth. We'll delve into that in part 2 of our deep dive.
This is turning into an economic thriller. We'll be back soon to uncover the rest of India's 5-year plans.
Don't go anywhere.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dives into India's 5-year plans. We left off with the promise of remarkable growth.
That's right.
So what happens next in this economic saga?
Well, the seventh plan from 1985 to 1990 brought a pretty significant shift in focus. The emphasis turned to increasing food production, expanding job opportunities, and boosting productivity.
Okay.
They even had a catchy slogan for it, food work and productivity.
And this new approach, did it yield results?
Oh, the results were impressive.
Okay.
The economy saw a 6% growth rate, surpassing the targeted 5%.
Wow.
It helped India break free from what was then called the Hindu rate of growth.
Hold on. You mentioned the Hindu rate of growth. Could you elaborate on that for our listeners?
Sure, it was a controversial term.
Okay.
Used to explain India's slow economic progress during those decades. Some argued it was due to inherent cultural factors, while others pointed to economic policies and structural issues.
Interesting.
The seventh plan's success in achieving a higher growth rate challenged this notion, demonstrating that India could indeed achieve faster growth.
So the seventh plan was a turning point, a departure from that era of sluggish growth.
It was.
Did this momentum continue into the eighth plan?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
But first, there was a slight delay.
Right.
The eighth plan, which was supposed to start in 1990, was pushed back to 1992.
Why was that?
Due to political instability at the central government level.
Okay.
And when it finally launched, the backdrop was full of economic challenges, a growing budget deficit, a recession in industry, and rising inflation.
So they were facing some serious headwinds going into the eighth plan. How did they address these issues?
Well, the eighth plan marked the beginning of a new era economic reforms. Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao introduced liberalization policies.
Interesting.
Aiming to open up the Indian economy to global markets.
This sounds like a major shift from the socialist-inspired model of the earlier plans. Was it a sudden change?
It was a gradual process.
Okay.
The eighth plan still recognized the public sector's role.
Right.
But it also encouraged private sector participation.
Okay.
And the results were striking. The economy achieved its highest annual growth rate yet at 6.8%.
Wow, that's quite a jump. It seems like the need for planning was now being balanced with a recognition of the private sector's potential.
Exactly.
Did this trend continue?
Absolutely. The ninth plan, spanning from 1997 to 2002, further emphasized the role of the private sector, both domestic and foreign.
So was the ninth plan all about economic growth, or were there other priorities as well?
While economic growth was crucial, there was also a focus on social justice and equality.
Oh.
The ninth plan aimed to combine rapid growth with initiatives addressing social issues like education, healthcare, and poverty reduction.
It's fascinating to see how these plans evolved, constantly refining their approach based on past experiences.
It is.
What about the 10th plan? Did it follow a similar path?
The 10th plan, covering 2002 to 2007, took a broader perspective on development.
Okay.
It went beyond just economic indicators, encompassing aspects like gender equality, environmental sustainability, and better governance.
It seems like they were moving towards a more comprehensive understanding of development, recognizing that it's not just about economic numbers, but also about social progress and sustainability.
Exactly. The 11th plan from 2007 to 2012 reinforced this concept with its theme towards faster and more inclusive growth.
Inclusive growth is a term we hear a lot these days. What did it mean in the context of the 11th plan?
It aimed to ensure that the benefits of economic growth reached everyone,
Okay.
especially marginalized communities like the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and minorities.
Right.
But, the 11th plan was launched right before the global financial crisis of 2008.
Oh, right.
Did that impact their progress?
It must have.
It certainly posed a challenge.
Yeah.
Despite a strong start, growth slowed down 2008-2009 due to the global crisis. However, the Indian economy proved to be resilient, recovering relatively quickly.
So they weathered the storm. What about the 12th plan? This was the final 5-year plan covering 2012 to 2017. What were its key themes?
The 12th plan sought to achieve a trifecta: faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth.
Okay.
It set ambitious targets for infrastructure development, renewable energy, and social programs.
Ambitious indeed. Were they able to achieve them?
Well, they faced headwinds from both global and domestic challenges.
Like what?
Including a global economic slowdown, macroeconomic imbalances, and implementation bottlenecks.
Makes sense.
However, they made notable progress in several areas, particularly in infrastructure development and poverty reduction.
So the 12th plan marked the end of an era, the culmination of decades of 5-year plans. Looking back, what are some key takeaways from this journey?
Well, the 5-year plans represent a remarkable story of ambition, adaptation, and resilience. They reflect India's determination to chart its own course toward economic development, constantly learning and evolving along the way.
It's been a fascinating journey through India's economic history,
It has.
understanding the need for planning and witnessing its impact.
Absolutely.
But what comes after the era of 5-year plans?
That brings us to a pivotal moment, the creation of NITI Ayog in 2015, replacing the Planning Commission.
So did the 5-year plans simply come to an end?
It's more of an evolution.
Okay.
NITI Ayog represents a shift toward a more collaborative and flexible approach to planning.
Interesting.
But we'll dive into that fascinating transition in the final part of our deep dive.
This is getting more and more intriguing. We can't wait to explore this new chapter in India's economic planning journey. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into India's 5-year plans. We've traced this incredible journey from the socialist-inspired model of the early plans to the market-oriented reforms of the later ones.
And it really shows how India's approach to economic planning has evolved.
Right, constantly adapting to all those internal and external changes.
Exactly.
And now we're at this pivotal moment, the transition from the Planning Commission to NITI Ayog in 2015. You mentioned that this signifies a shift toward a more collaborative and flexible approach.
It does.
So NITI Ayog, which stands for National Institution for Transforming India, was created to foster what's called cooperative federalism.
That's right.
Cooperative federalism.
Uh-huh.
Could you unpack that term for our listeners? What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, it means giving states a larger role in the planning process instead of a top-down approach, where the central government dictates the terms. NITI Ayog aims to create a partnership between the center and the states.
So it's about recognizing that each state has its unique needs and priorities, and that a one-size-fits-all approach might not be effective.
Exactly.
NITI Ayog also represents a move away from those rigid 5-year plans to a more dynamic approach.
Right.
So no more fixed targets and timelines. How does that work in terms of setting goals and measuring progress?
Well, instead of fixed plans, NITI Ayog focuses on crafting long-term vision documents and strategies that can be adapted as circumstances change.
It sounds like a more agile approach to planning. which makes sense in today's rapidly changing world.
It does. It allows for course correction and adaptation based on real-time feedback and new challenges.
What are some of the key areas that NITI focuses on?
Well, they have a broad range of initiatives covering agriculture, infrastructure development, education, healthcare, digital transformation, you name it.
Wow.
One of their main goals is to promote sustainable and inclusive growth.
That makes sense considering the emphasis on inclusive growth in the later 5-year plans. But if there aren't fixed targets, like in the 5-year plans, how does NITI measure success? How do they know if they're making progress?
Well, NITI uses a variety of indicators and metrics to track progress, including economic growth, social development, environmental sustainability. They also conduct regular evaluations and assessments
to ensure that their initiatives are having the desired impact.
Exactly.
It sounds like a more nuanced and data-driven approach to planning.
It is. It's about moving beyond just focusing on numerical targets and toward a more comprehensive understanding of development.
So what's the verdict so far? Has Ayog been successful in achieving its goals?
Well, it's still relatively early to make a definitive judgment, but there have been some noteworthy achievements.
Such as?
For example, Ayog has played a key role in initiatives like the Digital India program, which aims to improve digital literacy and connectivity.
That's a huge undertaking, especially in a country as vast and diverse as India. What about other initiatives?
Well, they've also been instrumental in the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, or Clean India mission focused on sanitation and hygiene, and the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao scheme, which translates to Save the Girl Child, Educate the Girl Child, addressing gender equality and empowering girls.
I've heard of these. These initiatives have definitely garnered a lot of attention. They seem to reflect NITI Ayog's focus on a broader range of development issues.
They do, and it doesn't stop there. NITI Ayog has also been promoting innovation and entrepreneurship through initiatives like the Atal Innovation Mission, which aims to create an ecosystem that supports startups and fosters a culture of innovation.
It sounds like they're trying to create an environment that encourages growth and development across multiple sectors.
That's the overarching goal, to create a more holistic and sustainable model for India's future.
So with this shift from 5-year plans to NITI Ayog, what do you see as the future of economic planning in India?
Well, the transition represents a significant step toward a more collaborative, flexible, and data-driven approach. The focus is on long-term vision, adaptability, and inclusiveness. The success of this new model will depend on several factors, though. What
are some of those factors which we be paying attention to in the coming years?
Well, effective implementation will be crucial, as will coordination between the central government and the states. And of course, maintaining a focus on addressing India's complex development challenges will be paramount.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've covered the entire history of India's 5-year plans, starting with their socialist-inspired beginnings and culminating in this transformative shift toward NITI Ayog. It's a testament to India's ambition, its ability to adapt, and its constant striving for progress.
It really highlights the complexities of economic development and the ongoing search for models that can lead to sustainable and inclusive growth.
And it leaves us with plenty to think about. What's next for NITI Ayog? How will India balance its economic goals with the need to address social inequalities and environmental concerns? These are crucial questions that will shape India's development path in the years to come.
Absolutely. As India continues to transform its economy, it's clear that planning in this new and evolved form will remain a vital tool for navigating the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into India's 5-year plans and the transition to NITI Ayog. We hope you found it as fascinating as we did.
We did indeed.
And we encourage you to continue exploring this topic. Keep pondering the questions it raises about the future of economic development in India and beyond.
It's a fascinating journey.